We go back to Steve Kornacki to look sort of inside some of these results that we're getting. Steve, when you're looking at these results, focusing not so much on Trump but on DeSantis and Haley, are either of them either overperforming or underperforming what you would have expected from the polling?
Yeah, and again, it's a little tough to say because in so many of these counties, we still are looking at only 1, 2, 3, a very small number of precincts, so there could be still a lot of variability to come in. But the thing we've been stressing with Haley is the more college degrees you have, the higher the incomes are, more suburban or even urban the area is, the better she's expected to do. So we talked about that again. Nothing's changed here, but even at the 1%, this is a county she would want to be winning. This is where Iowa State University, where Ames is. This is where the University of Iowa is. We've got a little more in here now. And again, Haley continuing to lead there. These are the kinds of counties she wants to be doing very well in. Here's another big college county. This is Black Hawk County. The University of Northern Iowa is here. The city of Waterloo is here. This is interesting because we do have a fair amount of the vote in now from Black Hawk County. Compare it to 2016. So, Cruz and Rubio, it's a very tightly bunched three-way race here, but Cruz and Rubio were bunched together. I think it is interesting that Haley has, at least in the early going, a little bit of distance from DeSantis here. This is the kind of county, if you're between Haley and DeSantis, I think this could be kind of a potential barometer because of the mix of the population here. It's not a huge number of college degrees, even though Northern Iowa is there. There's also the city of Waterloo. There's Cedar Falls. There's a lot in this county. So I think this is one where show me who comes in second at the end of the night here between Haley and DeSantis. I think that could be very telling. Another place to look is just the obvious place to look here, the biggest county in the state, Polk County. And we're starting to get a little bit more in now from Polk County than we had earlier. It was just a precinct. Again, in the past, like 17% of all the caucus vote has come out of Polk County. And again, you're talking about a high concentration of college degrees here. Obviously, the city of Des Moines is here, a lot of suburbs in Polk as well. And again, just look at how this one went in 2016. Trump lagged here a bit. If he'd done better in Polk, he could have potentially had a win, statewide. But Rubio and Cruz, this was a Rubio county. Cruz ran about 500 behind him. This is the kind of, it's a point and a half basically between them. This is the kind of place, I think, pay close attention in Polk to that Haley-DeSantis margin. If Haley's getting some distance on DeSantis here, potentially that means a lot of raw votes, and that means something that could really help her in terms of getting that second place statewide. If DeSantis is able to keep it close with Haley in this county, and you see in the early going he's actually ahead of her right now. If DeSantis is ever able to get second place here or just keep it close with Haley, I think he's doing himself a world of good. And as we said, we've got a little bit more in now. Sioux County, again, this was Trump's worst. This is deeply religious, deeply evangelical. Looking closely in this northwest corner of the state here, how many of these, is DeSantis going to be? This is a good result for him so far in Sioux County. Again, Lyon County hasn't changed since we showed you. This would be a terrible result for DeSantis if something like this stayed. But again, you go to this portion of the state, this is 11 votes, but these are the kinds of counties where DeSantis doesn't want to be at 18. He wants to be 30, in the 30s, I think, as a target. So we'll see as more precincts come in. But in the Northwest, if he wins them, that's great for him. If he's in the 30s, I think that's probably hitting a target for him in those kinds of counties tonight. We just don't have enough vote in to tell right now. But obviously, I think a good bellwether potentially could be Black Hawk County. Take a close eye on Polk County as it comes in. Here's another interesting one, Warren County, right south of Polk County. This is another one of those counties. It was Huckabee, Santorum, and Cruz. This is one of those counties that went with the evangelical candidate. Again, Trump now is winning here overwhelmingly. DeSantis probably wants to be in the 30s here. Now we've got 10% of the vote in statewide, and you can see DeSantis has jumped over Haley. We can check here in a second, see what just came in here. It was what? Okay, I can't quite hear, but anyway, we got Mississippi River County just came in. Okay, yeah, Clinton County. So, Trump continuing over 50% here. Expect just these numbers, I think, are going to go back and forth. When you get more of the suburban counties in, this number is going to go up. When you get more of the rural counties in, this number is going to go up. And more to the point, this number is going to come down because Haley doesn't seem to be doing particularly well in those rural areas right now.
Steve, thank you very much. You guys thinking about what happens after this and sort of how many tickets out of Iowa there are, as they say. I feel like I can imagine what happens next for Nikki Haley, because I don't think she needs Iowa. It would be great, and it'd give her a lot of big momentum. Let's say Nikki Haley comes in third. Ron DeSantis comes in second. Let's say it's 20% and 18%. What does Ron DeSantis do next? Because Ron DeSantis is at single digits in New Hampshire, hasn't had any campaign anywhere other than Iowa. What happens to him next if he comes in second?
I mean, one of the most interesting things to watch tonight is going to be how these candidates handle it when they go out and speak, right? Because historically, candidates will go out and they'll claim victory, even when they got second or third. Like, people stood for me, I had momentum. And you're like, wait, you didn't win. Hold on a second. That's happened long before this caucus. If you're Ron DeSantis, I actually think a second place is great for him. I mean, dare I say, because the expectations a little bit are that Haley was going to beat him in Iowa. And Trump even thinks that Haley is going to beat him, because Trump yesterday said about Haley, you're going to find out a lot about her in the next short period of time, which is very mobby, but it also means he's threatened by her. And Don Jr. went to a caucus site where she was tonight to attack her specifically.
Wait, he physically went to the same caucus site where she spoke?
Same one. The reporting suggests they didn't interact, but they clearly, she's the one who makes them nervous. So if DeSantis beats her, she still has her pathway in New Hampshire, but if you're DeSantis, you're going to claim victory.
But those are also very different voters, because with immigration being the top issue for Iowa voters, Nikki Haley doesn't represent what they're looking for.
Sure.
So she's going to take a turn here. And think about all the classic Republicans, the business set. You know where they are tonight? In Davos, Switzerland, at the World Economic Forum. And when they hear the people who overwhelmingly supported Donald Trump are anti-immigrant, they're certainly not. They're certainly looking for comprehensive immigration reform. We have a huge labor shortage in this country. And so there's a big portion of classic Republicans that are scratching their heads.
But they're not the majority of the electorate, though.
Right. Correct.
That's the thing. Of the Republican electorate. They may be the majority of the overall electorate.
Well, in New Hampshire, the other thing that helps in New Hampshire, obviously, is that it is an open primary, right? I mean, the caucuses are technically open. You can come and register that night, but New Hampshire is fully open for independents to come and vote. And we've seen that vote carry people that might perform differently than Iowa. Nikki Haley has that obviously going for her. A huge part of the issue here, when we talk about Trump's dominance of the Republican Party, one of the things I think we don't talk about enough is that he's just chased a lot of people out. Like, there's a bunch of Romney voters who just watch MSNBC all day now and vote like Democrats, like straight line. Like, there's everyone. Like, there's tons of those people. So those voters are not in there in the caucus anymore.
I mean, it's not like the Republican Party isn't competitive in the national polling right now. And NBC's national polling right now, Trump is beating Biden.
Oh, no, I'm not saying anything about the competitiveness. I just mean the kind of person who considers himself a Republican has been changed by Trump enough that some of the votes that would be needed for a Nikki Haley, for instance, are not there because they're not Republicans anymore. That makes the math a lot harder.
I think if you're the campaign, if you're running the campaigns for Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, you each have to do one specific thing. If you're Ron DeSantis and you do come in second, you then need to have to make a choice. You either need to move your entire operation to South Carolina and try to pull a Barack Obama, right? Wherein they
he's going there first before New Hampshire,
right? Because you have to remember it's the other evangelical state. So since he's built his strategy on getting white evangelical voters to come to him, he needs to go immediately there. But then you have to remember, you can't lose Florida to Donald Trump without being completely ritually humiliated and going down in flames. So you have to make a decision how much of your resources go to South Carolina versus Florida. If you're Nikki Haley, you go immediately to South Carolina, right? You have to obviously win New Hampshire.
Yes,
I think she'll not win, but come in second. I'm saying win when I say come in second. So she'll do decently in New Hampshire, but she absolutely has to perform well in South Carolina. It's the other evangelical
She has a
state.
chance to win in New Hampshire. She is within single digits of Donald Trump in New Hampshire. It is not going to help her do that if she comes in third tonight. She'd be better off if she came in second tonight. But she has to throw all the way down.
She has to
in
go
New
to New
Hampshire because
absolutely.
and
she can't lose her home state.
What I say, this whole thing about how many tickets out of Iowa just depends who you ask. The political professionals, the press, which is interested in this, everyone who loves to follow politics, how many tickets, let's follow this as long as it goes. But if we again return to the fact that there is an anti-Trump wing of this party, it might be more embattled than last time, but as I mentioned, last time it was over 50% if you pooled all the other votes. That wing and the donor class would like to find the alternative now. Trump just won Iowa. They'd like to find it now, which means forcing out one of the candidates with whatever mechanism and pressure and money they can do.
So it's the money drive.
So the mob thing, that I think Jen's right, Trump's saying that if he's in a one-on-one.
Right.
But the Trump campaign and status quo MAGA would love for this to just play out over a couple states and have a
And then he wins by-
primary, just how he won last
if DeSantis
cycle.
comes in second tonight in Iowa, I think we have a relatively long Republican primary. And if DeSantis gets shellacked in Iowa tonight, I think we have a relatively short Republican primary, at least in terms of it being reduced down to two.
Yeah, and the problem for Haley is if she does well tonight, or even if she just does really well in New Hampshire, she has to have a path after that.
Right.
And the electorate in the states after New Hampshire is much more like Iowa than it is like New Hampshire. New Hampshire is a unique unicorn in some ways in the early primary states. It's much more independent. It's much more of the people Steph was talking about. And that's her challenge. She could have money, but it's like, how are you going to win? How are you going to win your home state?
If she wins New Hampshire, she gets to Super Tuesday no matter what.
Yes, but she still has to have a path to winning in those states that are more like Iowa than New Hampshire.
And I think to the point that you made, Steph, I mean, it's the elephant in the room. She's still a brown lady that's got to try to win in a party that is deeply anti-immigrant and which accepts the notion that you can say immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. She's getting, birthered by Donald Trump. And I don't care how much the donor class likes her, which will ramp up a lot, the better she does in New Hampshire. So it's still a challenge. I don't see how she becomes the nominee of that party with Donald Trump still around. I can't picture it happening. Maybe it could happen. Ron DeSantis' only argument for staying in it is he's the white guy, that he can still make the appeal to white evangelicals.